Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Anika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am thrilled today to have an amazing multiple startup founder and experienced business person to help unravel some of the things that people don't think about when they're going into business and might need an expert advice to unravel. So Feras Alhlou, thank you so much for being here. And I was saying before we got on, I love the name of your company. It's very self-explanatory, right? Startup with Feras.
You got it. Yeah, very easy. Just pleasure to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Well, so you started out as an engineer and working in corporate. What was the journey that led you to entrepreneurship and then now to helping other founders understand the best ways to go about their businesses?
Yeah, the journey, fortunately or unfortunately, started with a very painful layoff.
Ooh.
I was a VP in a cutting edge tech company here in Silicon Valley after we had moved from Florida. And one day I was a VP pitching to or working with Fortune 500. And then I remember the CEO walking into my office. It was a Wednesday afternoon and saying, "Hey, Faris, I want to speak with you for a minute." And he said, "We have a layoff tomorrow and you are impacted." So the emotions that go through your mind, your stomach dropping, your heart racing. Every time I tell the story, those memories come back.
Yeah.
So you go sort of from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in a way. Went home, told my wife, she's an amazing woman, still amazing after all these years as well. Very supportive. Of course, we had a young family. Of course, financials were top of mind, but we'll figure it out. So couldn't find a job, couldn't get an interview. It was a tough market. It was a very dry market. I could not get an interview for 6-7 weeks. So my business partner and I, my friend, who later became my business partner, we decided to start a business and we put our resources together and we had no idea how to do it and what to do, but we got into it. And many years later, we sold businesses, we grew businesses. Now I'm helping others.
Fantastic. What was that first business? And did you create it because you saw a hole in the market? Or did you create it because you said, these are my skill sets, but I can't get a job as a VP or higher at this other companies right now. So I'm just going to start helping people anyway?
Yeah, these are the logical, reasonable steps that people should go through. That's what I tell entrepreneurs. When you have a job, it's a perfect time to start a new business when your financials are in order, no major life events. But it wasn't the case for us. And I couldn't find a job. And so entrepreneurship was sort of in the back of my mind. I think 60% of Americans have a business idea. I think only 9% of us actually do something about it. So yeah, I want to have my own business. That was something in the back of my mind. But you have expenses, you have rent to pay, you have car payments to pay. And we get so used to this 9 to 5 and the paycheck and the vacation, the PTO and the 401ks. So no, it wasn't sort of the first thing that jumped out at me, but I couldn't find a job. So in a way, I always say I was forced into it. The good thing is I had an amazing business partner and we had no idea how to do it. It was 2003. That was sort of the dawn of the internet. So websites were a new thing. Online marketing was a new thing. So we started selling website design to small businesses. So we didn't do like a whole lot of market research, but we figured, okay, we know how to talk with customers. I didn't have any sales background, but I knew some account management. My partner was more of sort of the strategic, big picture. I'm sort of the tactical. So we figured people need to get on this internet thing and let's see if we can sell them something.
Wow. Those were definitely the wild west days of the internet.
Yes, absolutely.
I was actually living in the Bay Area at that time.
Okay.
As well, working in the magazine side of the world. And our company had Business 2.0 and launched a lot of different magazines, but it was still like, how exactly do you use this thing called the internet? And I remember going to chat rooms still. That was like the AOL chat rooms were still big.
Yep.
And you found people to communicate with from all over and how it's changed and transformed. So you got in at a very great time to understand.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it was scary in a way. This was after the bubble burst, the 2000, 2001. So a lot of companies went under. There were a lot of layoffs, similar to what we're seeing today with the waves of layoffs across industries, not just in tech. So is it scary from that perspective? Is this a fad or is this something that's going to stick? And so there's what to do and what to sell and who to sell to. That was clear in our minds. Websites to small businesses. We didn't know anything about starting a business. And YouTube at the time wasn't a thing. You couldn't find a lot of information on YouTube. So how to incorporate LLC, S Corp, C Corp, local taxes, state, federal, accounting. So I remember, like, what do we do? Where do we start? We didn't have a whole lot of money to call lawyers and pay $250 an hour or something. So we reached out to our network. And that's what I tell entrepreneurs. This is the most underutilized asset that we have, our own network. And I found someone I looked up to who had started a business a few years before us and has started to be profitable. And he's always resourceful and helpful. So he was very gracious. He agreed to sit down and no charge, sit down with my business partner and I for an hour. And he just went over what he went through when he started his business a few years ago. Like, here's the lawyers I spoke with. Here's why I chose this versus that. Here's the type of taxes you got to do. This back office stuff that we had zero knowledge about. So that help of that advisor, in a way, the person that has done things similar to what we needed help in. And most importantly, he pointed us to the right trusted partners and vendors that he used. So instead of us spending weeks finding the right lawyer and the right accountant, that help and that advice and that 1 hour session was super helpful early on. And it gave us a bit of comfort that, hey, like, he's done it. He's sharing this with us on our own. And that helped a lot.
Definitely. There's so much to be said for mentorship or having advisors, people that you trust, who you've seen go through something. You might not do everything exactly the way they did it, but at least you have a basis of understanding for what can make a successful company.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I wanted to ask, how did you market? Because the internet marketing wasn't what it is today. So
Sure.
How did you find those clients?
So I had zero experience in marketing and sales. So people who are listening, I worked in a startup and I worked in corporate. So I get a client, I manage that client, I had resources, but me selling, me marketing my own services that I knew very little about was something new. So we took some courses, we listened to some CDs. CDs were a thing at the time. I can tell you the first day we went out knocking on doors, we went to 5 restaurants.
Wow.
We figured these people know us. We've been paying them money all these years. We eat at their places, so better buy from us. And the sad reality was that we had 5 rejections. So 5 restaurants, 5 meals in the same day, 5 rejections. It was hard for a couple of days. It took us a couple of days to recover. But what happened is we figured the nature of it, right? That's what the sales coach said. You got to try. You're going to get rejections. You don't know the stuff yet. But 6 weeks later, we were having lunch at a Greek restaurant here. It's called Athena Grill, still around here in Santa Clara. And I had my laptop and my business partner. We were looking at some things to do. And then the business owner, Vasiliki, she walked by and my business partner said, why don't you see if she wants to buy a website? So I turned my computer and I had a design of a restaurant. And I said, hey, Vasiliki, what do you think? Oh, we should do a website for you. She's a direct, no-nonsense person. Said, what is this for? How is this going to help my business? Sat down with her, talked to her about it. She brought her husband in. A week later, we signed the deal and I got the 50% deposit,
Nice.
a whole lot of check for $700. And I'm telling you, that was like a huge thing for me. It was probably one of the sweetest business moments, maybe after selling some of the businesses, but that was really important because not only the money, but it validated that, hey, we can sell this. So that $700 check with the handshake and she looking in our eyes and say, give my business, help me get, more business. That meant a lot. It just gave us a whole lot of energy to go out and do more. We didn't make everything else a whole lot easier. It was still a struggle, but it validated our idea that we have something to offer and to sell.
Absolutely. And that's the first thing you need. You need that one customer to say yes so that you get that energy to go on. Tell us about the journey after that, because then obviously you had a very successful company. You had to add new technologies as things like Google came out, analytics, digital advertising.
Yeah, in business, I think you end up in life and in business it's all full of pivots. Sometimes you plan the pivot. Sometimes pivots happen to you. Sometimes they hit you like a ton of bricks and you have to be forced into doing something. I never thought I'd come to Silicon Valley. I went to school in Tulsa in Oklahoma. That's my roots over there. I never thought I would go to Florida to work for a home shopping network. Opportunities come up and sometimes for the good, a lot of times they look like challenges and you have to overcome. So we struggled a lot for the first couple of years just to get some traction and sell where we can basically support ourselves. And then we hired people and then we started to get larger clients. And we were really, I think, good students. So learning was an important value, has been for my entire entrepreneurship career, is just you got to learn, and then apply. So education is learning and application. And so you have to learn it and apply it. And then we ended up building an offshore company to help us with the back-end development of websites and do like larger, more complex projects. We ended up becoming part of a franchise and we ended up being one of the top earners. I'm just kind of sharing with you the positive outcomes, but a lot of struggle along the way, a lot of struggles, a lot of fails, a lot of, we invested in a company that ended up, we had to shut down and we lost a lot of money. So there's a lot of pivots, but on the upside, we did manage to build an analytics business that grew to initially 7 figures and then to 8 figures. Right. And then we sold that business in 2019 to Dentsu, the global media company. But all this gray hair, I don't know if listeners can see it, but maybe those on YouTube can see it. I always joke that half of it is from my kids when they were teenagers and the other half is from all the businesses that I started.
What was the most fun business to you out of the different businesses that you started, whether they were successful or not, right?
The most fun business. We spend most of our waking hours with people we work with. So, and I work hard. My motto in life, work hard, play hard. So if I'm spending 10, 12 hours a day with people, I just love, especially initially when we're all sort of together trying to figure it out. So that phase of every business is the most fun before we have a whole lot of processes and a whole lot of systems, a whole lot of red tape. All of those are important. For you to go to 7 figures, you got to have systems and processes. Don't get me wrong. But I love just finding a co-founder. I've always had co-founders and this is my 7th venture now. I've always had a co-founder. They complement you. They keep you in check. They help you do better. So the values are aligned and the chemistry is there and we complement each other. And we ended up building something that we're all, both happy about and proud of. So all the businesses, I think that early stage is really exciting to me. And then it sort of gives me a lot of energy to put time into it.
I find it interesting that you're talking about having co-founders in every business, because I've had different businesses, some with co-founders, some without. And sometimes you choose somebody who you think is going to be a great business partner and they turn out maybe not so great. Somebody might be a great friend and you think that you have complementary skills, but you don't necessarily know until you get in the business. So I'd love to hear, how did you know who the right people were to go into business with? Was that any place that you had to make any pivots?
The way I look at it is you have to be self-conscious. You have to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses. I think as an entrepreneur, as a person in life, do a personality test, do the strength finder thing. Look at your last performance review. If you had a good manager, a tough manager, they'll tell you what you're good at and what you're not good at. It doesn't mean that you can't improve. In general, I'm with skills finders, I'm the top talent achieving and learning. Which is positive, but also they could drive people nuts because I'm always I want to get stuff done. So having a founder who would slow me down, especially on major decisions, so that we make sure all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted is important. For whatever reason, I ended up being the sales and marketing person out there, learned sales the hard way, figured it out over time. So my partners typically happen to be more on the back end of it. They're the one in charge of delivery and implementation. So I think in terms of finding, having partners who will complement you technically in the technical skill, that's important. Also resources, they might have money that they can invest in the business and maybe you don't have, you put the time. That's one way to find complementary people. But I think the essence, and that's to your point, is I think you have to agree on a few things. One, the values. One is sort of any relationship, business or otherwise, there have to be certain expectations in place. I think the way maybe you want to retire in a year, your partner wants to go at it for another 10 years. So I think making sure there's alignment on major things in business. And then you can always go and argue and, have a bit of a, discussions and heated discussions every once. That happens all the time, like just like at home with your spouse, with your friend, but I think the major things in business, when you want to exit, are you looking at it as sort of a side hustle, putting a few hours a week and they're putting 80 hours a week? All of those expectations, I think. And it's someone nice, someone you want to have lunch and dinner with. It's someone you can't stand. Like, dude, you're spending 10, 12 hours a day. Like, especially initially, there's just you and them. So yeah, I would say look at business values and also just complementary skills. These are two important things.
And the other thing that you just said is that you end up being the sales and marketing person, but yet your background is very technical in engineering. So how did you discover that you love? Because I feel like a lot of people who are in the engineering space or the more scientific side, analytical side, might not be as comfortable in that side of the sales, marketing, being the outward facing external person.
Spot on. And I think some of the stats I've read, 70% of founders, they don't have a sales background. And some of us, we probably avoided the sales department like the plague. This is the dark side. Don't get close to marketing and sales. They make things up. Sales is a dirty word. So some of the stuff is ingrained in us in corporate or in companies we work at. And some of it also socially, we talk about, make fun. I don't as much. Like used car salesmen, they're the least believable. So we all have to buy cars and we see all the song and dance that happens there. So I think at the end of the day, if you're a founder, you have to sell. You could be the most amazing IT consultant or coach or HR consultant or the best tree trimmer in town. It doesn't matter. You have to sell. Even if you do a lot of content marketing and leads come to you at one point, unless you're selling stuff online, like a service, whatever, like a SaaS or something, you can just purely sell online. At the end of the day, for most, especially services, businesses, people will have to call you, have to pick up the phone and speak with them. So for me, it was, necessity is the mother of all inventions. So we had no option. I couldn't find a job. I had a young family. My business partner put money in the business. I put a little, he put a lot. I had obligations to meet. We took courses. I think if you don't know it, whether it's HR, whether it's accounting, whether it's hiring, whether it's sales or marketing, for business owners, you must initially, you have to do all of this. So you have to learn it on your own. And part of learning is just like when you first rode that bike, when you first put your hands on the steering wheel, right? It's hard and you're going to be tense and people are going to see it and feel it and sense it. But as you do it, it becomes easier. You become better at it. And then you start enjoying it once you're closing deals and once it becomes more of a challenge than anything else. Sales is never easy. Just like delivery is never easy. Just like HR is never easy. But the more you do it, you do the reps and then you become better at it.
Yeah. You build muscle memory, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Fantastic. Now let's talk about what things look like today. You sold your web and marketing analytics consultancy in 2019, pre-pandemic. Then did you start your startup company right away, helping other entrepreneurs?
So I actually stayed with the acquirer for a couple of years. So 2.5 years. I left towards the end of 2021. And then I did something I've been wanting to do all of my life, is to dedicate some time to nonprofits. So fortunately, I was able to do that pro bono for almost a couple of years. And then on the side, so my main hustle was working for nonprofits for a couple of years, couple of years. And then on the side, I started to build Startup with Feras, which is a media and a business advisory company. And then last year, my co-founder, Eric, he also left corporate on his own and believed in this mission and joined. And we, as of about a few months ago, I'm going to add it full time. I've been going to add it full time, and we're producing content on YouTube and also on our website about the challenges that I went through, and then the challenges that I hear founders are going through to help founders avoid the mistakes I made. At least that if I'm successful at that, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's a big factor, and it's so great that you're doing this. So, what kind of founders are you working with today? Are people typically coming to you when they are just starting, their ideas in the infancy, or when maybe they've raised a little bit of money, but they don't know how to get to the next stage?
Yeah. I mean, we can help founders across, I think, all phases of a business, except going public. That's not my thing. What we decided to focus on when we did a bit of research on YouTube and also online, we believe the early stage founders in services and consulting, that market is maybe not as served as maybe how to grow the business. So how to start a business. If you have an idea, you've been wanting to take that leap and you're hesitating, maybe because of some irrational fears or maybe because of rational fears, whatever the case might be, maybe because financial needs, maybe because you don't know how to do it. So we provide support there, someone who has an idea and want to start a business. And then those who started and they're struggling. They can't get sales, or marketing is not working, or they have plateaued and maybe they get up to $150,000 in revenue and they've been at it for 3 years and they can't break that ceiling. So it's when we say early stage is either wanting to start a business or started and struggling. And we believe we can get people on the right track and then they can excel. And obviously as we grow in businesses, once you get to $1 million in revenue, for example, what got you there is not going to get you to the 2 million, right? So there's always learning and application of that learning and trying things out and pivoting. But early stage seems to be, it's a huge hurdle for a lot of people, and we're trying to help in that area.
And do you see a lot of the same issues over and over again, or is every case very unique?
There are trends that I think persist over time. And I think there's some time-tested business principles that apply all the time. So for example, working hard is a prerequisite. I don't think you can grow a business. You can be a solopreneur and try to balance the imbalance of life. But if you want to grow a business and go to 7 figures and 8 figures, you really, especially in the early stages, you really can't do it like with this 8 to 5 mentality. I'm not saying everybody can and should do this, but if you said, I want to grow a business and I want to, especially want to grow it aggressively and have a lot of profitability, then you just can't do it with 8 hours a day. So my job, what I think it's a disservice if I tell people you can make it big and you can become a millionaire and you can get $10,000 a month in revenue, which is not, you see a lot of that on YouTube today, by working 3 hours a week. It does not work. 3 hours a day, it doesn't work. There are no shortcuts. So working hard, learning, I think seeking, in terms of advisors, we talked about that earlier, I think seeking the advice of those who have been to where you want to go is really important, because I think one of the challenges, especially for Gen Zers and new graduates, I just published a post on how to prove the stereotypes wrong for the Gen Zers. And one of the things is, like, don't let anyone label you. You're not part of some generational trend theorist. Like it's you. You got to work hard. You got to give it your best. If you're looking for a job, you got to send 100 resumes. Even if you get 95 rejections and only 5 interviews, that's what it takes. Just do it. It's a tough market out there. So I think some of those things are on learning, on working hard, on seeking the advice of those who know you, those who care for you, and they have domain expertise. I think those things transcend time and external factors and whatnot. But it's today that, on this point, I think it's harder today in the sense of, in our time, 20 years ago, we did not have access to as many resources. I think today is the opposite, and I don't envy the founders today. There's just so many resources out there. It's overwhelming. Like, what do I listen? Like, who do I listen to? What do I do? How do I start? And then, we're bombarded by messages every other day. So it's sort of overwhelming. I think that's one of the challenges that I hear today.
Definitely agree with that. And like you said, there are so many people who are experts who will tell you, oh, you don't have to invest very much time and you can make so much money. But
of course,
if you're going to have a business that's going to last and that really is infused with your vision, your values, that's not going to be the case. Do you have any favorite clients, case studies that you can tell us, even if you can't use the name? Because I'd love to hear some of the aha moments that have come from people you've worked with.
Yes, definitely several, but one that sticks in my mind and probably forever is someone who, early on, when we first started to sell online marketing, and we used to sell pay-per-click, when you sell ads on Facebook and Google. At the time, it was only Google and Yahoo. And this business owner was a friend of a friend, so I got introduced to them, and he looked at me like, what are you talking about? People click on my ad on Google. Again, this is 20 years ago, right? And I said, yeah, we can get you traffic, we can get you leads. So he really didn't believe in it, but because a friend of a friend, and the friend was there with us, he kind of felt obligated. So he said, okay, I'll give you $200 a month, try it out. Then he got a lead. He got a qualified lead from that website. And he was, oh my God, this thing is real. And fast forward 6-7 years from then, we were on a $60,000 retainer contract with this client. And he stayed with us till we sold the business. So he's a friend now. He became a friend a few years into it. And we took this client from $200 a month to $5,000 a month, plus project that we would do for their company. And it was a mid-sized company. It wasn't like a Fortune 1000 or anything. Mm-hmm. So not every client is going to be like this. Clients' needs evolve and change over time. But if you take care, I tell entrepreneurs all the time, take care of your clients, especially your early clients. Bend over backward for them, even though they might be unreasonable, demanding, maybe sometimes jerks, whatever. Initially, you need the clients, you need the revenue, you need to validate what you're selling. You need to show that you have logos. And then some of them will honor that commitment, that sacrifice, and they'll be with you for a long time and they'll support you when things are tough in your business.
Thank you for sharing that. I love hearing stories, but I'm also interested to learn, at what point do you think people should start looking for outside investment? How do people understand profitability? And I mean, these are related but unrelated questions. And then scaling up your team as well.
Yeah. Once you're profitable, obviously you can reinvest in the business if you don't have to take the cash out. So that's good. You can grow organically. And for the most part, in most of our businesses, that's what we did. But at some point, if you see an opportunity and you need to hire quickly and you don't have the cash in the bank to fund that payroll, or maybe some equipment you have to buy, or some software you have to buy, or some new market you want to enter. I remember when we wanted to go into Dubai, we had an established business here and we wanted to build a sister company in Dubai. We knew how to deliver, we knew how to sell, at least in the US and Canada, but we had to rely on some partners, local partners who knew the market, who knew how to sell in that region, who knew the maturity of the market there was different than here. So we needed to set aside some money, some capital for that expansion. It's just a different business altogether, different business and a legal entity. So sometimes, but it was an opportunity and that business got to 7 figures. And then I stayed out of that business for a while because it wasn't part of the acquisition. I couldn't be part of it because of my non-compete. And I'm now back into it. But the point here is that you might see an opportunity, you don't have the cash to support. So then you can either find friends and family investors. You can maybe go to the SBC. You can go to, different sources for, you can tap into your own savings. That's obviously something. Don't make that decision lightly. If you have people in your life who are impacted by this decision or by other decisions, make sure they're on board. Make sure you tell them the whole picture. I had to tap into our savings. Again, my wife was very, very supportive. I think, I don't know, maybe for men more than women, like if people, like, is my wife going to support? I can tell from my own experience. I don't know. But I think if the spouse, if the partner in your life, they see you like giving it your best and working hard, I think they're more likely to support you. But if you're, scrolling and you're not really committed to this initiative and then you're tapping into your 401k or in your savings, it's not going to be a happy ending financially and probably relationship-wise. So yeah, I think you can tap into different resources, and then there's a lot of things you can go through, like through the small business offices that there exist, or Chamber of Commerce. There's a lot of local resources. And I think for a services business, you don't need as much cash as maybe for doing a product. So there are a lot of resources. I would say, see if you can avoid that need to invest as much as you can. But if there's an opportunity and it has a potential significant upside, it might be worth getting a loan or getting an investor. So you might not have the whole pie at the end of it, but at least you have a good chunk of a bigger pie.
So you still have your hand in some businesses as well as startup with Faris. And when somebody does come to you, I know you have free consultations. Then do you take, a fee, or do you take a percentage of their business do you invest in things? Like, what does that look like for businesses that might want to work with you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So we have a lot of free content available on YouTube and on our daily newsletter at startupwithfaris.com, Faris, Feras. We also offer premium consulting, and we're launching actually an online course for the masses, people who just want to, at their own pace, have a sort of self-paced learning with a community aspect. So there are different ways, I think, depending on people's needs, they can the course, or they can reach out for some consulting. We do have a model where we're more like a fractional board with maybe some equity and some compensation. That's going to depend. I mean, we don't take on a lot of those because we have to give attention. There's only so much time I can allocate to that. But in terms of resources, I think a lot of free resources would love for people to check it out and let us know what they think. And if they have questions, we're happy to answer.
Fantastic. And if you had to go back in time and you saw yourself when you were starting out in business and moving different places and getting laid off, what piece of advice would you have given yourself?
Early on, be a sponge. Learn as much as you can. Pick up, don't worry as much about money. You need money to obviously pay rent and survive and maybe save a little bit. Initially, the first few years, for the younger crowd, learn as much as you can. I think if you can get a chance to work in a place, maybe not as prestigious as big name brand, but you can learn a lot. If you have two opportunities, I would go after where you can learn more and then pick up skills, pick up soft skills, communication, listening, presenting. Those are really, no matter what you do. I think I've read somewhere like that your education in college is really preparing you for your sixth job. So all these transferable skills that you pick up when you're younger. And again, I don't want to sound like, because I just wrote the article about 2024 graduates, so it's fresh top of mind. But even for those of us mid-career who want to pivot, they want to climb and reach to the top of their second mountain, we can always learn, we can always pivot, we can always reinvent ourselves. That's just the nature of it. We're all living longer, we're retiring longer, our financial needs are not getting lighter. So I think no matter what stage in your career, whether you're younger or sort of mid-career or late career, I think pick up new skills, learn about AI, embrace AI, use it on your own, see if you can automate things in your business with AI, because you're not going to lose your job to AI. I think you're going to lose your job to someone else like you who's using AI when you're not. So
yeah, we could talk about that for hours. So we'll have to have further discussions. But Feras, it's been so lovely to meet you, hear your journey. I'm so excited about what you put out into the world. And it's so evident that you're taking your own blessings, your own fortune, the things that you learned from other people and had the opportunity to expand upon and pouring that into people. There's nothing better than that. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And thanks for all the great work, all the great content you produce, and also the nonprofit work you do in Ghana. So that's amazing. Keep that up. And again, thank you for having me. And if you're ever in the Bay Area, please let me know. I'd love to meet you in person.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Do you have a favorite quote, verse, family motto?
So personal motto, work hard, play hard. Yeah. I said that already, but I'll since we're talking about service and helping others, I'll wrap up with this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, life is not just about being happy. It's about being compassionate, being honorable, and being useful. So live a life that is, you want to leave a legacy, you want to help others in so many different ways, no matter how challenging our situations are at times, and they could be very, very challenging. I bet you there are others who are struggling more. So give from what you have, time, money, advice, a thought, a prayer, whatever the case might be. But I think, go out there. I'm a capitalist at heart. So work as hard as you can, make as much money as you can, 100%. At the same time, share with others, be useful, and be of service to others.
So beautiful. And that's such a great thing to end on. So thank you again, Feras Alhlou. Hopefully I said that correct.
You got it. You got it spot on. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll have your information in the show notes so people know how to schedule a meeting with you and find all of your great content for them to practice and use in their own business journeys.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everybody who's watching or listening to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their business expertise with you. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.